I said, I could die tomorrow. You could, anybody can. I said, so let's look at life.
The lights are dimming on one of Hollywood's most enduring careers, and the world is holding its breath. John Travolta, the man who made us believe we could dance our way through life's greatest challenges, who showed us that redemption is possible even after the darkest falls, is preparing to say goodbye. Not to life, but to something equally profound for a man who has lived and breathed cinema for over 5 decades. The announcement has sent shockwaves through Hollywood and devastated millions of fans who grew up watching him transform from disco king to action hero to beloved character actor. For years, whispers have circulated about Travolta stepping back, about his grief becoming too heavy to carry in the spotlight, about his desire to find peace away from the cameras that have documented both his greatest triumphs and most heartbreaking losses. Now, those whispers have become reality. The decision comes after a period of intense personal reflection, following tragedies that would have broken lesser men and a career renaissance that proved his talent transcends generations. What is John Travolta saying goodbye to, and why now after everything he has survived and overcome? The truth is more emotional and unexpected than anyone anticipated. This is not a story about illness or scandal. This is a story about a man who gave everything to his craft, who lost the people he loved most, and who is finally choosing himself after a lifetime of performing for others. At 71 years old, John Travolta is making a decision that will reshape his legacy and force us all to reconsider what we know about one of cinema's most fascinating figures. The revelation will move you, surprise you, and ultimately show you a side of John Travolta that the cameras never fully captured. John Joseph Travolta was born on February 18, 1954, in Englewood, New Jersey, the youngest of 6 children in a family where performance was not just encouraged but expected. His mother, Helen. Cecilia was an actress and singer who had appeared in radio vocal groups and later became a high school drama teacher. His father, Salvatore Travolta, was a semi-professional football player turned tire salesman who supported his wife's passion for the arts and encouraged all their children to explore creative expression. Growing up in an Irish-Italian Catholic household, young John was surrounded by music, theater, and the kind of chaotic energy that comes with being the baby in a large, loud family. His siblings were all involved in entertainment in various ways, and the Travolta home often felt more like a theater company than a traditional family residence. John watched his older siblings perform in local productions, absorbed his mother's lessons about timing and emotion, and developed an early understanding that entertainment was serious business requiring dedication and discipline. But John's childhood was not without struggle. He was not a strong academic student, finding traditional classroom learning tedious and uninspiring. School felt like a prison for someone whose mind worked differently, who needed to move, to perform, to express himself physically rather than through written tests and homework assignments. He struggled with what would later be recognized as dyslexia, though at the time, teachers simply saw him as unfocused or unmotivated. The frustration of feeling intelligent but unable to succeed in traditional educational settings created deep insecurities that John would carry into adulthood. At 12 years old, John landed his first paid acting job in a local production. The feeling of being on stage, of becoming someone else, of hearing applause wash over him like absolution, was transformative. This was where he belonged. This was what he was born to do. His mother recognized his talent immediately and became his fiercest advocate, driving him to auditions, helping him prepare for roles, and instilling in him the work ethic that would define his career. By 16, John made the bold decision to drop out of high school and move to New York City to pursue acting professionally. His parents, rather than discouraging this risky move, supported him. His mother understood that traditional education was not John's path, and that forcing him to stay in an environment where he was struggling would only damage his spirit. New York in the early 1970s was a brutal, beautiful place for a teenage boy with dreams but limited resources. John took whatever work he could find, appearing in minor theater productions, television commercials, and anything that paid enough to keep him fed and housed. He lived in cramped apartments, survived on minimal food, and faced rejection after rejection after rejection. But he also studied. He watched other actors, learned from directors, absorbed every lesson the theater world had to offer. He took voice lessons, dance classes, and acting workshops, investing every dollar he earned back into improving his craft. The struggling years in New York created the foundation for everything that followed, teaching John about resilience, persistence, and the price of dreams. John Travolta's breakthrough came in 1975 when he was cast as Vinnie Barbarino in the television series Welcome Back, Kotter. The show was an immediate hit, and John's portrayal of the charming but dim-witted sweat hog made him a teenage heartthrob virtually overnight. Suddenly, the struggling actor who had been living paycheck to paycheck was on magazine covers, receiving fan mail by the thousands and being recognized everywhere he went. The fame was intoxicating and overwhelming, a drug that John both craved and feared. But television stardom was just the beginning. In 1977, John Travolta became a cultural phenomenon with the release of Saturday Night Fever. His portrayal of Tony Manero, the Brooklyn paint store clerk who becomes a god on the disco dance floor, was electric, vulnerable, and utterly mesmerizing. The film was not just a hit, but a cultural earthquake that defined an era. The white suit, the finger-pointing, the strut became iconic images burned into the collective consciousness. The soundtrack sold over 15 million copies. John received his first Academy Award nomination at just 23 years old. The world had never seen anything quite like John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. He moved with a grace and confidence that seemed impossible for someone so young. He brought depth to a character that could have been a shallow caricature, showing us Tony's frustration with his limited life, his artistic soul trapped in working-class expectations, his desperate need to be somebody. Audiences did not just watch Tony Manero dance. They felt his joy, his pain, his hunger for something more. Before the world could catch its breath, John followed Saturday Night Fever with Grease in 1978, playing Danny Zuko opposite Olivia Newton-John. The musical romance became one of the highest-grossing films of all time, and John proved he could do more than just dance. He could sing, he could do comedy, he could play both tender and cocky with equal authenticity. The dual success of Saturday Night Fever and Grease in consecutive years made John Travolta the biggest movie star on the planet. He was 24 years old and owned Hollywood. The late 70s and early 80s saw John at the absolute peak of his powers. He commanded enormous salaries, appeared on every magazine cover imaginable, and dated some of the most beautiful women in the world. He bought his mother a house, invested in aircraft, and became a certified pilot, indulged in the trappings of fame that he had once only dreamed about. Life was perfect, or so it seemed from the outside. But the fall came swift and brutal. After the extraordinary success of his early films, John made a series of poor choices in his movie selections. Urban Cowboy in 1980 was moderately successful, but films like Moment by Moment, Two of a Kind, and Staying Alive were critical and commercial disasters. By the mid-1980s, John Travolta went from being Hollywood's golden boy to box office poison. The industry that had worshipped him just years earlier now considered him a has-been at barely 30 years old. The rejection was devastating. John went from being offered every major role to struggling to get meetings. The phone that had rung constantly fell silent. Friends in the industry stopped returning calls. The brutal reality of Hollywood became clear. You are only as good as your last hit, and loyalty is a luxury no one can afford. John faced a choice that many stars before him had faced: disappear quietly or fight for a second chance that might never come. The professional struggles were painful, but they paled in comparison to the personal tragedies that would devastate John Travolta's life. In 1977, at the height of his Saturday Night Fever success, John began a relationship with actress Diana Hyland, who was 18 years his senior. Diana was sophisticated, talented, and became a mentor and lover to the young star, but their romance was tragically brief. Diana was diagnosed with breast cancer, and despite aggressive treatment, she died in John's arms in March 1977. She was just 41 years old. The loss of Diana devastated John in ways he could not fully articulate. She had been the first woman he truly loved, and watching her die created a trauma that shaped his approach to love, loss, and mortality. Friends noted that John changed after Diana's death, becoming more guarded emotionally, more aware of how quickly everything beautiful can be stolen away. The grief never fully left him, becoming instead a permanent resident in his heart. Throughout the 1980s, as his career crumbled, John also faced intense scrutiny about his personal life, his religious beliefs as a Scientologist, and persistent rumors about his sexuality that tabloids exploited mercilessly. The pressure of maintaining a public image while dealing with private pain became nearly unbearable. John retreated from the spotlight, taking smaller roles, focusing on his passion for aviation, and trying to rediscover who he was beyond the fame that had defined him since adolescence. The resurrection of John Travolta's career came in 1994 with Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. The role of Vincent Vega was a revelation, showing audiences a grittier, more dangerous, more interesting John Travolta than they had ever seen. The film was a massive critical and commercial success, earning John his second Academy Award nomination and proving that talent, given the right opportunity, can transcend past failures. The comeback was complete when he starred in Get Shorty in 1995, winning a Golden Globe and re-establishing himself as a legitimate movie star. But even as his career resurged, personal tragedy continued to stalk John Travolta. In 1991, he married actress Kelly Preston, and together they built what appeared to be a beautiful family with 3 children, Jet, Ella, and Benjamin. The Travoltas presented themselves as devoted parents who prioritized family above all else. But behind closed doors, they were dealing with challenges that most families never face. Their oldest son, Jet, had autism and suffered from seizures, conditions that required constant attention and created enormous stress for the family. John and Kelly became advocates for children with special needs while trying to protect Jet's privacy from the media circus that surrounded their lives. Then, in January 2009, the unthinkable happened. While the family was vacationing in the Bahamas, 16-year-old Jet suffered a seizure and died after hitting his head in a bathtub. The loss of a child is a pain that defies description, a wound that never heals, only scars over. John Travolta disappeared from public view for months after Jet's death, unable to function, unable to imagine a future where his son did not exist. When he finally returned to work, friends said he was fundamentally changed, carrying a sadness in his eyes that no amount of professional success could erase. He and Kelly leaned on each other, on their faith, on their remaining children, and somehow found the strength to continue. Then, in July 2020, came another devastating blow. Kelly Preston died from breast cancer at age 57. The same disease that had killed Diana Hyland over 4 decades earlier. Kelly had been battling the illness privately for 2 years, and her death left John widowed with 2 children still at home. The cruelty of losing another woman he loved to the same disease seemed almost too much for one person to bear. John retreated even further from public life, focusing entirely on raising Ella and Benjamin and processing grief that had become his constant companion. Now, at 71 years old, John Travolta has made a decision that has shocked Hollywood and touched the hearts of millions. He is saying goodbye to acting, not immediately, not with a dramatic announcement followed by a farewell tour, but gradually, thoughtfully, on his own terms. In recent private conversations that have come to light through close friends and industry insiders, John has revealed that he wants to step away from the spotlight that has defined his entire adult life. The decision stems from a profound realization that emerged from his grief and his reflection on what truly matters. John has spent over 50 years performing for others, living his life in public, allowing strangers to consume his joy and his pain as entertainment. He's given everything to his craft, sacrificed privacy, endured unimaginable losses while cameras documented his every move. Now, he wants something different. He wants peace. He wants to be simply Dad, to Ella and Benjamin, without the pressure of being John Travolta, the movie star. Friends close to John report that he has been selective about projects in recent years, choosing only roles that genuinely interest him or allow him to work with people he respects. He is not retiring from acting entirely in the traditional sense, but is instead redefining what acting means in his life. No more pressure to maintain stardom. No more accepting roles out of obligation or financial need. Only projects that bring him joy and allow him to spend the majority of his time with his children. John has also been spending more time pursuing his passion for aviation, flying his personal aircraft, and finding solace in the sky where grief cannot follow. He has been working on preserving Kelly's legacy through charitable work related to cancer research. He has been present for his children in ways that his career previously made difficult, attending every school event, being available for every conversation, creating memories that will sustain them long after he is gone. The decision to step back is not about health concerns or scandal, but about choice and agency. John Travolta is choosing himself and his family after a lifetime of choosing his career and his public. He is saying goodbye to the version of himself that needed fame, that craved validation from strangers, that measured success by box office numbers and awards. He is embracing a simpler existence focused on love, family, and the simple pleasures that fame often obscures. In recent statements, John has expressed gratitude for his extraordinary career, for the opportunities he received, for the fans who supported him through triumphs and failures. But he has also been honest about the cost of fame, about the way constant public scrutiny damages authentic human connection, about how the industry takes and takes until there is nothing left unless you draw boundaries. At 71, John Travolta is finally drawing those boundaries and discovering what life looks like on the other side of fame. John Travolta's story reminds us that success and happiness are not synonymous, that fame cannot protect us from life's deepest pains, and that the bravest thing we can do is choose peace over performance. His decision to step back from acting is not a defeat but a victory, a reclamation of the life that was always his but that he gave to us for 5 decades. We have been privileged to witness his talent, his resilience, and his humanity. What is your favorite John Travolta performance? Do you remember where you were when you first saw Saturday Night Fever or Pulp Fiction? Share your memories and your gratitude for this incredible actor in the comments below. Let's celebrate his legacy together. If you appreciated this look at John Travolta's journey and his decision to say goodbye to Hollywood on his own terms, please subscribe to our channel for more stories about the legends who shaped cinema. Next week, we explore another icon making unexpected life changes that will surprise you. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss it. John Travolta taught us how to dance, how to dream, and ultimately how to let go with grace. His story continues, quieter now, but no less meaningful. We wish him peace, joy, and all the love he has given to the world returned to him tenfold.